you cited this guy while you were talking about Fitzpatrick, probably the player fantasy owners, and I know certainly myself, are most excited about is Antonio Gibson. He's going to be the first Washington player off the board in most drafts. And after converting from wide receiver to running back, he still finished as the running back 14 in fantasy last year, in large part due to 11 touchdowns, seventh most in the NFL. With an early to mid-second round price, though, I think owners are expecting even more from Gibson as a sophomore. Do you think that's fair to expect more? What are you thinking for this guy in his second season?
Well, I definitely think it's fair to expect more. My question with his draft positioning, just based on what you just said, then would be, how are they going to use him? You know, does Scott Turner want to run the ball? Does Washington want to run the ball? If they are viewing offense the way that they did last year, and it's the way that I like offense viewed, frankly, from a philosophical standpoint, I had Scott Turner on my show. And I asked Scott Turner, about the amount that they throw to running backs. And his point is, if we could target a running back 8 times and they catch it 8 times, how's that any different than a handoff? And I agree with them, right? And you're just getting them the ball in space. I think that's smart. So that's good news, I think, for Gibson as a receiver. Remember, he was a wideout at Memphis. I do think he's going to cut into the touches, the targets, the catches for McKissic, who caught 80 balls last year. So that area, the arrow's trending up. As a receiver, I think he's going to get better as a run protector, a pass protector in the passing game as a running back as well. So that'll allow him to stay on the field and more passing downs than he did last year. So all of those areas I think are really, really good for PPR leagues. I guess my question in just traditional running sense, how many touches and carries is he going to get? Do they view him as a bell cow? Are they ever going to smash mouth people and just pound the football? To me, it seems like they are a team where they're only going to really commit heavy to the run when they're in front. And they did it a couple times last year when they were blowing out the Dallas Cowboys. And that was not coincidentally the 2 games where Antonio Gibson put up huge numbers, well over 100 yards, had a field day. So I think his value as a ball carrier, Wolf, is probably going to be tied directly to how many games they win, like how good they actually are. I think they're maybe a 9-10 win type team tops. But the easy answer, the quick answer would be yes, he's going to be better than he was last year because I think he's going to be more involved in the passing game.
Absolutely. I think all those are great points. In fact, looking at his last year splits in wins, he averaged over 20.5 fantasy points, given that game script, as you mentioned, whereas in losses, he averaged 14.1. So, nearly over a touchdown difference, rather, in those splits there. So you got to hope, at least with Fitzpatrick coming in, the offense should be a little bit better. The defense certainly still looks great on paper. So hopefully those scripts do better favor him this year. And then he gets that additional receiving work that you suggested could be on par for him. I wonder, as you mentioned, he was a converted wide receiver. What was it with last year that he didn't play much, see much receiving work out of the backfield? And has he refined any, weaknesses that the staff might have identified that led him to not getting that work? Or why wasn't he used much as a receiver, I guess?
Yeah, it's a great question, Wolf. I mean, what they said when asked about that, at least in season, was it's just a lot to learn. Like, he's learning the playbook and basically learning, okay, how to press this carry and hit your landmark and work with this offensive line. Now we're going to work on the route tree, and now we're going to work on making sure you can pick up all the blitzes that you're going to see. I mean, it's a lot for a rookie running back. There's a reason why, unless you're a lottery pick right at the top of the board, like an Ezekiel Elliott or a Todd Gurley or something, a lot of the times when you're a 3rd-round pick like Gibson, you kind of get eased in. And I think that was part of it, frankly. And I know it sounds silly because JD McKissic's a bit of a journeyman, but I think they love what he gave them. Yeah. He and Alex Smith particularly had a really good thing going, and he's just exceptional in that regard. So I think that they were willing to utilize. I can't specifically say and go hard in the paint on this, but with the young running backs from my time covering the beat of this football team for 4 years and covering the league, a lot of times it is just a trust thing and pass protection. I mean, we talk about the offensive line. Like, oftentimes the guy most responsible for making sure a quarterback's get hurt is the running back. You feel like a kid running back can handle that. That's passing downs. That's 3rd down. That's where he's going to get a lot of those targets. And those catches when he kind of leaks out when nobody's coming. So I think that was a huge issue for Washington in the past, with quarterback injuries and things. I know specifically the Alex Smith broken leg play was on a play where a running back missed a block. And I just think that that's something they take seriously. And when you're a wide receiver converting to back, that's not something you've been asked to do. So I would imagine the learning curve was pretty steep.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Pass protection would be a big area. We'll have to keep tracking out if there's word from camp that he's improving there. I think the early reports on Twitter are suggesting that he is, at least as a route runner, showing a bit more. Pass protection, though, will be the big key. But as we like to always remind you guys, in PPR leagues, a target's worth 2.7 more points than a carry. So if that workload does get bumped up, that would be huge. And you have visions of Scott Turner. I love that quote you said, like, if we could throw it to the running back 8 times, how's that different than carries? Why wouldn't we do that? More space, all that. You think about Christian McCaffrey back over there in Carolina. So the ceiling could be limitless if that receiving work does get bumped up. And certainly, with a mid-second price tag, owners are expecting that ceiling to definitely get lifted. So we will see how he goes. Vegas sets his over under at 1,025.5 yards on the ground specifically, not total yards. Do you think he hits that rushing wise, or is that a little bit lofty?
No, I think with an extra game of 17 games, if he stays healthy, I think he will hit that. Because again, I do think this team, the script will work in his favor where they're going to be ahead enough, particularly against the bad teams they play. They've got a brutal schedule. They play all 4 teams that were playing on Championship Sunday. Maybe those weeks, those numbers are lower. But I think he could put some hay in the barn in some of the games they're playing against inferior clubs. And I think, in 17 games, if he's not at close to 1,100, they'd be pretty disappointed, because it would mean, number one, they're not playing in front, but number two, they didn't do what they wanted, which was feed him more this season.
Absolutely. And you referenced those Dallas Cowboys games too. If I'm not mistaken, one of them happened on Thanksgiving, and it was an ultimate glorious feast, like 3 touchdowns, insane. I still, now you should maybe go back to Thanksgiving Day. It was amazing. What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.